Donald Trump just said something at the United Nations that made the entire British government freeze. And what happened next proves he might have been right. The President of the United States stood at the UN podium in front of nearly 200 world leaders and said this: "I look at London, where you have a terrible mayor, terrible mayor, and it's been so changed." The room went quiet. Diplomats stopped shuffling papers, cameras locked onto the British delegation, but Trump wasn't finished. Then came the line that detonated across every news channel on earth. Now they want Sharia law. Bang. Like a thunderclap over Manhattan. The room went dead silent. Translators paused mid-sentence. Diplomats from Beijing to Brussels leaned forward in their seats. And within seconds, the story wasn't just what Trump said. It was how Britain responded, or more accurately, how they couldn't. If you want to see why millions of Brits are now saying they agree with Trump, why the British government is in full damage control, and why this controversy reveals something much deeper about modern Britain, hit that subscribe button right now, because this story gets worse by the minute. Here's what makes this different from every other Trump controversy you've seen. He didn't attack Sadiq Khan on Twitter at 3 a.m. He didn't say it at a rally in the middle of nowhere. He did it at the United Nations, the single most recorded diplomatic event on the planet. Every word translated into dozens of languages, every reaction filmed from multiple angles, carved into the permanent record of history. No deleting, no walking it back, no claiming he was joking. This was deliberate, calculated, and delivered with the entire world watching. And the target? Sadiq Khan, London's mayor since 2016. The man who's overseen the city during some of its most challenging years, rising knife crime that's claimed hundreds of young lives, many of them teenagers stabbed on their way home from school. A housing crisis so severe that average rent in London has surged past £2,000 a month, forcing working families out of the city where they've lived for generations, transport disruptions that cost the economy millions. While commuters face delays, cancellations and overcrowding on a daily basis, and a growing perception among many residents, backed by polling data, that parts of London don't feel as safe as they used to, particularly at night. Now, are all of these problems entirely Khan's fault? That's a complicated question. Some of these issues, like housing costs and crime trends, have roots that go back decades, long before Khan took office. The Metropolitan Police fall under complex jurisdictional authority. National government policies affect local outcomes. There are legitimate debates about what any mayor can realistically control. But here's where it gets complicated, and this is crucial to understanding why Trump's words hit so hard. Trump didn't invent these criticisms. Walk through any British comment section on any news article about London. Sit in any pub conversation, take any London cab ride and ask the driver what they think. You'll hear similar concerns, sometimes expressed even more forcefully than Trump did. Frustrations about crime, worries about changing neighbourhoods, questions about whether local leaders are listening to ordinary people's concerns. The difference is Trump said it with the world watching. At the most prestigious diplomatic forum on earth, then social media absolutely exploded. And this is the part that should genuinely terrify British politicians, regardless of their party affiliation. Within minutes, thousands of comments from British voters started flooding Twitter, TikTok, Instagram and Facebook. And here's what made the political establishment panic. These comments weren't defending Khan or attacking Trump for going too far. They were agreeing with him. Screenshots flooded social media showing Londoners saying he's not wrong. People sharing their own experiences of feeling less safe in areas they'd lived in for decades. Others posting crime statistics from the Metropolitan Police website. Hospital wait times. Graphs showing trends in violent crime. Some comments even went as far as, "I wish Trump could run Britain," and at least someone finally said what we've all been thinking. Stop and process that for a second. A foreign leader criticises your mayor on the world stage in front of nearly 200 countries, and your own citizens respond by saying, "Finally, someone said it out loud." That's not just political division. That's not just partisan disagreement. That's a complete collapse of public trust between leaders and the people they represent. Think about what it takes for someone to publicly agree with a foreign president criticising their own government. Most people have natural patriotic instincts. Most people want to defend their country when outsiders attack it. But when those instincts break down, when people feel so unheard by their own leaders that a foreign politician becomes the voice of their frustrations, that reveals something profound about the state of British politics. Sadiq Khan responded exactly how you'd expect a modern politician to respond. He came out swinging with the standard playbook. He called Trump racist. He called him sexist, he called him Islamophobic and misogynistic, strong words, heavy accusations, the kind of language designed to shut down debate and put your opponent on the defensive. But here's what Khan didn't do, and this is what stuck in people's minds. He didn't address the knife crime statistics that parents across London discuss in hushed, worried tones. He didn't explain his strategy for the housing crisis that's destroying the dream of home ownership for an entire generation of Londoners. He didn't defend his actual record as mayor with concrete achievements and measurable improvements. He didn't talk about the transport system failures or the expanding congestion charges that working families say are crushing their budgets. He went straight for the identity politics playbook, hoping that accusations of bigotry would end the conversation. And for years, that strategy worked. Call someone racist and they'd back down, terrified of the social consequences. But something has shifted in British public opinion. More and more people are pushing back and saying, no, I'm not racist for wanting my neighbourhood to be safe, or I'm not a bigot for questioning policies that affect my daily life. While Khan was calling Trump names, ordinary people were doing something more powerful. They were posting evidence, screenshots of crime data from the Metropolitan Police showing year-over-year increases in certain categories. Graphs tracking violent crime trends. Videos filmed on London streets showing drug dealing in broad daylight, harassment on public transport, and situations that made people feel unsafe. Not opinions, not feelings, data, hard numbers, the kind of information Khan never wants to discuss because it contradicts the carefully managed narrative. Then Khan tried to dismiss the entire controversy with what he probably thought was a clever comeback. He said Trump is living rent-free in my head. A tired internet meme from 2019. You're the mayor of one of the world's most important financial and cultural capitals, overseeing a city of 9 million people, and you're responding to international criticism like someone who just lost an argument in a YouTube comment section. That's not confidence, that's not leadership, that's panic, dressed up with a hashtag, and everyone watching could see right through it. But if you thought Khan's response was embarrassing, wait until you hear what Prime Minister Keir Starmer did next. Because Britain's leader was about to make this situation so much worse. Starmer finally addressed the controversy after days of pressure from journalists and opposition politicians. And what did Britain's Prime Minister, the man supposed to represent the entire nation on the world stage, say in response to Trump's UN attack? He called it ridiculous nonsense. That's it. That's the entire rebuttal from the leader of the United Kingdom. 2 words, ridiculous nonsense, no detailed counter-argument, no statistics proving Trump wrong, no passionate defence of London's genuine achievements under Khan's leadership, and there are some worth defending. No nuanced explanation of the complex challenges facing any major city in the 21st century. Just 2 dismissive words that sounded like they came from a frustrated teacher dealing with a troublesome student rather than a world leader responding to international criticism. You'd get a more convincing and substantive defence from a debate club at any British secondary school. It was weak, it was vague, and it satisfied absolutely no one. But Starmer didn't stop there. He went further, and this is where it becomes truly painful to watch. He said, Sadiq Khan is doing a really good job as Mayor of London. A really good job. Let those words sink in for a moment. Knife crime continues to claim young lives with horrifying regularity, making London one of the most dangerous major cities in Western Europe for youth violence. Rent prices have exploded to levels where average families earning decent salaries can't afford to live in the city where they work. The congestion charge and ULEZ zones, while perhaps justified on environmental grounds, are financially crushing small business owners and working class drivers who can't afford newer vehicles. The tube breaks down constantly with delays and cancellations that most Londoners just accept as normal. Crime on public transport has surged, with women particularly reporting feeling unsafe during evening commutes. And Keir Starmer looks at all of this, at the frustrations expressed by millions of Londoners in polls and on social media, and says Khan is doing a really good job. Either he's completely disconnected from the reality that ordinary Londoners face every single day, or is deliberately lying to protect a political ally from his own party. Neither option inspires confidence in his leadership. Then came perhaps the most revealing moment of this entire saga. Starmer declared with what seemed like genuine pride, "We are very proud to have a Muslim mayor in our diverse city." And there it is. The deflection that proves Khan and Starmer's critics right. Because here's the absolute truth that needs to be said clearly. Nobody is criticising Sadiq Khan for being Muslim. Not Trump in his UN speech, not the British public commenting on social media, not the people pointing to crime statistics and policy failures. The criticism is about performance, about results, about whether London is safer, more affordable, better run, and more responsive to residents' concerns than it was 8 years ago when Khan first took office. Khan's religion is completely irrelevant to questions about knife crime prevention strategies, transport infrastructure investment, housing policy, or policing effectiveness. But Starmer, like Khan before him, immediately turned legitimate policy criticism into a question of identity and religion. It's a shield, a defensive mechanism, a way to avoid accountability by painting critics as bigots and racists, even when their criticisms have nothing to do with faith or ethnicity. And it's deeply cynical politics that insults both the critics and the Muslim community by suggesting that a Muslim mayor should somehow be immune from the same performance standards we'd apply to any other elected official. Here's where Starmer's response becomes even more bizarre and revealing, when reporters pressed him and asked directly, "Do you think Donald Trump is racist for making these comments?" Starmer wouldn't give a straight answer. He dodged. He deflected. He mumbled something vague about disagreeing with Trump's language, but not wanting to engage in personal attacks or name-calling. So which is it, Prime Minister? Is Trump making racist attacks on your political ally that require strong condemnation, or is he just someone you politely disagree with on policy matters? You can't have it both ways. You can't defend Khan by implying his critics are motivated by bigotry, while simultaneously refusing to call Trump a bigot when asked directly. What we're witnessing is a Prime Minister trying desperately to play both sides of an impossible political equation. He's trying to defend Khan strongly enough to satisfy his progressive base and his own party members, while not burning bridges with Trump in case he needs American cooperation on defence, trade, or intelligence matters in the future. The result, he looks weak and incoherent to everyone. Weak in front of Trump, weak in front of European allies, weak in front of his own voters. Because here's the brutal truth about international politics. When Trump speaks, whether you love him or hate him, whether you think he's a genius or a fool, the entire world listens. His words move stock markets. They shift headlines. They dominate news cycles across every continent. They force other world leaders to respond. They change diplomatic conversations. And when Starmer mumbles a confused, contradictory, defensive response that satisfies no one and convinces no one, the world doesn't just ignore him. The world laughs. Foreign policy analysts shake their heads. International newspapers write editorials about weak British leadership. And worse than all of that, they laugh at Britain itself, at the nation that once led the world, that built an empire, that stood alone against fascism, now reduced to defensive buttering when criticised. But here's what this controversy is really about, and it's so much bigger than Trump versus Khan or American criticism of British politics. This is about a growing chasm between political leaders and the people they claim to represent. This is about millions of British citizens who work hard, pay their taxes, follow the rules, raise their families, and just want their government to listen to their concerns about safety, about crime, about the changing nature of their communities. And when they raise those concerns, too often they're dismissed as bigots. When they point to statistics, they're accused of fear-mongering or being manipulated by right-wing media. When they say their neighbourhoods feel different than they did a decade ago, they're told they're imagining things or being intolerant or stuck in the past. So when Donald Trump stands at the UN and says what many of them have been thinking, some feel validated for the first time in years. Right or wrong, agree or disagree, that's the reality of where we are. And pretending otherwise, dismissing those feelings or attacking people for having them will only make the divide worse. The real story here isn't what Trump said at the United Nations. The real story is why so many British people agreed with him. That's the question Sadiq Khan, Keir Starmer, and every British politician, regardless of party, should be asking themselves. Because if a foreign leader can speak to your citizens' frustrations more effectively than you can, if people would rather be represented by an outsider than their own elected officials, you've already lost the most important battle in politics, the battle for trust. So here's my question for you, and I genuinely want to hear what you think. Did Trump cross a line by attacking London's mayor at the UN, or did he say what British politicians have been too afraid to say themselves? Drop your honest opinion in the comments below. No judgment, just real talk. This is about having a conversation that Britain desperately needs to have. And if you want to see how this political firestorm develops, how Starmer and Khan respond next, and whether this controversy changes anything about British politics, hit that subscribe button because this story is far from over. The next move is Britain's, and the whole world is watching to see if they'll finally address the concerns millions of their own citizens are raising, or if they'll keep dismissing them as ridiculous nonsense.